Good morning, colleagues. Thank you for coming this morning. I know you're all excited to hear what we have to say this morning. Good to see you all with us this morning. You guys know what this is generally about. This is the feedback press conference following a Senate meeting that was held over the weekend, where the Senate took some decisions with respect to the city of Johannesburg, which is particularly for this engagement. So up firstly, let me introduce the colleagues here with me. To my extreme left is MPL and ActionSA provincial chairperson for Gauteng, Ngobeni. Then we've got the caucus leader for the city of Johannesburg, ActionSA's caucus leader, Nobuhle Mthembu. Then we've got Michael Beaumont to my immediate left and Ndate Herman Mashaba. So to kick off proceedings this morning, we're going to start with the COJ caucus leader, Nobuhle Mthembu, who's going to begin proceedings. Thank you, Nobuhle. Over to you.
Thank you, James. The city of Johannesburg has been on a down low or downright slope for quite some time now. And I will elaborate shortly on why I'm saying this. To give a bit of background, up to date, we've had 4 executive mayors in the city of Johannesburg. The first one was former mayor Mpho Phalatse. The second one was Sello Enoch Dada Morero, who was a mayor for only 25 days. Then we had Councillor Thapelo Ahmad, who was an interim mayor. And up to date, we have executive mayor, or we can say caretaker, Kabelo Gwamanda. Councillor Gwamanda failed dismally in his role, and we can spend days highlighting his failures. His failures can be seen in every street corner of this great city, Johannesburg. When the residents of Johannesburg were yearning for proper leadership, Councillor Gwamanda was nowhere to be found. He only responded to emergencies. He's a very reactive executive mayor. When we had the Osindiso fire breakout, where we lost 77 people in this great city of Johannesburg, his intervention, or rather the city's intervention under his leadership, was very pathetic. Up to date, the city has spent millions of rands for less than 200 shekels. And we asked him about this, no feedback. During the Bree Street explosion, where residents were looking up to him for assurance that their lives are safe, guess what happened? The Premier of Gauteng was the one on the front line responding to the questions, and he was quiet. First citizen of the city was quiet. The ongoing water crisis that we face, the mayor is nowhere to be found. I'm sure as the media houses as well, you are constantly looking for feedback from him, just like our residents. The mayor is not interested in basic service delivery. The bylaws are not being implemented in the city. The city is filthy. And one last point I'm going to touch on, the 200 Rand electricity service fee. This executive mayor is tone deaf. The residents have been saying, we simply cannot afford to pay this amount. But the executive mayor is standing on his point that he will not rescind that council resolution that was taken, even though the residents are shouting out and saying we simply cannot afford it. So we have an executive mayor who does not want to represent the very same residents that he's saying, I'll speak out on your behalf. As the city of Johannesburg, or as ActionSA Joburg caucus, who've been very vocal about this, we don't need a caretaker. We need someone who's going to be in the front and represent the residents and give us confidence that he will lead. We are adamant that this layer brought nothing but pain in the city of Johannesburg, and he must go ASAP. As for the EFF, these are the people who inherited problems from other municipalities and bringing those problems to the city of Johannesburg. Look at what's been happening with the loan. The loan has not been passed because they're taking Ekurhuleni political decisions and bringing them all the way to Johannesburg. The residents do not deserve this. EFF should not play with the residents' livelihood. Service delivery has stopped because of what the EFF is doing to the coalition agreements. Lastly, we cannot punish the residents. As ActionSA, we are here to represent them and look for other solutions that will make sure service delivery is happening in this great city. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Caucus Leader. Next up will be the National Chairperson, Michael Beaumont.
Move to that side. You have to play musical chairs. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much to members of the media who are here today to cover this important announcement, to ActionSA members and supporters who are following these proceedings from all around the country with great interest, and I think particularly to the South African people and the residents of Johannesburg who have suffered greatly in local government and have engaged us frequently to ask what are we going to do about it. It is good to speak with all of you today. We announced as a party an election review in the immediate wake of the 2024 national and provincial elections, and this review has had us travelling the country and engaging with structures of our party. In some of those shorter distance engagements with our caucuses here in Gauteng, we have been engaged by our councillors who are deeply concerned about the declining condition of the metros in Gauteng, particularly in Ekurhuleni and Johannesburg, and are seized by the point of view that coalition dynamics in South Africa at present has ActionSA sitting on the sidelines at a time in which people require us to be assisting them, especially given when you consider the number of seats ActionSA has in a place like Johannesburg. These seats need to be put to effective use, was the clear message that we received from our caucuses. And it was around this that there has been an engagement at our Senate to look at our positioning on the matter. In what I suppose can only be the wake of the engagements we held with the ANC nationally and provincially in response to the setting up of governments of grand coalition governments nationally and provincially, the ANC has approached ActionSA and has sought to solicit our support in the city of Johannesburg. The Senate has met over the course of the weekend, and it is now my responsibility to convey to you what the outcome of the Senate resolution is, and it can be read as follows. Firstly, that ActionSA will become a constructive opposition in the city of Johannesburg as a continuation of the position we have announced nationally in response to the grand coalition set up at that level. We will take up key positions in the legislature to empower our role as an opposition. We will not take up positions in the executive, but we will take up positions in the legislature in such a manner that we will have the structural foundation upon which we can be the kind of opposition that is required against a failing government in the city of Johannesburg. We will supply our 44 votes in Johannesburg Metro to the government on an issue-by-issue basis with the meritorious consideration of the issue at hand only. We will supply a series of motions over the next 2 years which will drive frontline service delivery issues, like, for example, around infrastructure renewal, which we see the effects of daily in Johannesburg, and programs like the inner city that were once hallmarks of the Herman Mashaba mayoralty at a time when Johannesburg was moving forward. Our support is similarly conditioned upon the removal of the mayor, Kabelo Gwamanda, who, as the caucus leader has so eloquently put it, has let down the residents of the city most profoundly. It is also conditioned upon the reversal of the 200 Rand surcharge imposed by City Power on prepaid electricity users across our city, the heartless imposition of which has been responded very negatively to by the residents of Johannesburg, who all exist under economic pressures like everybody else in our country. And finally, the requirement that the issue of the speaker in the city of Tshwane be corrected. For all of your benefit, you will recall that the speaker in the city of Tshwane is from the ATM and part of an outside coalition than the governing one, precisely because there was an era of vote buying that took place a long time ago, and when an ActionSA speaker was meant to be elected, a botched process in the voting by our partners in the Democratic Alliance caused the ATM speaker to be elected. The continuation of an ATM speaker in that arrangement continues to bring instability to that governing coalition, because effectively we have a Trojan horse in our government who has the ability to bring instability from within that position of speaker. Those are the conditions upon which we have predicated our support on an issue-by-issue basis for a governing coalition in Johannesburg. Now, as important as it is that I tell you what this arrangement is, it is equally important in the era of misinformation and political twistings of the truth that we convey what this arrangement is not. This arrangement is not a coalition agreement. ActionSA is not entering the executive. We are not co-governing. We are not joining the government of local unity, as it has so amusingly been phrased. We have no coalition agreement with any of the parties in this place. And as I've already indicated to you, our decision around what we support as a political party will be predicated only upon the merits of that particular issue and nothing else. Even the vote for mayor, we have been very clear to communicate to the ANC that that will be based on the individual that is put forward. If what is put forward is a continuation of the past with compromised individuals, our support will not be obtained. But I think we must also be clear we need to put behind us the Gwamanda era and move on, because quite frankly, very little can be as bad as the Gwamanda era has been. It is also not a change in our national position in relation to the grand coalition that has been set up nationally in our country. I have seen posts to the contrary in that regard. ActionSA is not entering the national grand coalition. We are in fact taking our position nationally, and we are extending it down into municipalities in a manner that is consistent with the principle of a constructive opposition. South Africans expect, post the 29th of May, that political parties deliver in their interests, and they are less concerned about what the configurations of those governments look like. I think it is also accurate to say, because we must play fair and we must be clear, is that our position has had to change since the 29th of May. We've always been a political party that has been unequivocal on the question of not working with the ANC. And I think while we may hold the view that this is not a coalition arrangement and not a co-governance arrangement, we must also be clear. To say that we cannot work with another political party can no longer be the case after the 29th of May. We must work together with every political party, and the measurement of our work should only be whether that work is serving the interests of that municipality and its residents and how it is delivering as a return on investment. We cannot sit back as ActionSA and allow a metro like Johannesburg to decline and decay the way it has, and sit on our hands, our 44 pairs of hands in Johannesburg, by clinging to a principle that we will not work with other political parties. Change takes place in the political environment, and if we aren't going to be dinosaurs, we too have to change and adapt to the changes happening in our political environment. We also, however, must say that we remain unequivocal in the fact that we remain a principled organization. We remain an organization that when you compare what we have said before and what we do now, we remain the most consistent of any political party in South Africa, certainly, and that has been proven time and time again, including in the establishment of this national grand coalition and ActionSA's positioning there too. So I think with those remarks that characterize what took place at our Senate, I would like to ask our President to come up and deliver the keynote remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, PC, caucus leader, members of the media, but more importantly, you people of South Africa, specifically the residents of the 3 metros in Gauteng. I think just to really give you a brief background so that I think you have an idea, because I think I found it really very interesting that when I made an announcement to resign, the entire media was there. And half of the media people 2 years later, I asked them what's the reason for my resignation. They had no knowledge. So I think let me take that opportunity to remind you so that I think you've gotten some understanding. As you're aware, fellow South Africans, I became the executive mayor of the city of Johannesburg on the 22nd of August 2016, leaving my business to really serve my country, use my privileged position to play that role. At the time, I was playing this role on the ticket of a DA of Democratic Alliance ticket. I served fellow South Africans for 3 years. Unfortunately, having to resign on the 21st of October 2019, but leaving office at the end of November to allow a smooth transition. If you can remember, I resigned on the 21st, but then DA then requested me to ensure that I don't, obviously, I think, compromise the administration. With my intention at the time, I wanted to leave immediately because I was very angry when someone wants to step you at the back. But I think really being sensitive to my country, I then said, no, I'm happy to really stay another month to really allow them to run the process of getting my replacement. As you are aware, at the time, just to remind you, I was running a 7-way coalition government constructed by the DA leadership, not by me, because I wasn't on the DA leadership position at the time, with the EFF voting with us on an issue-by-issue basis. I'm sure you guys remember they had 30 councillors who were voting with us on an issue-by-issue basis. And lucky enough, if you look at the period as a mayor of the city of Johannesburg coalition became the most stable coalition in the country. Some of the major findings during this 3-year tenure as a mayor, I discovered senior management in the city being run by ANC deployees. 170 billion rands of infrastructure backlog. To remember, as soon as I took over, I did a study so that I have an understanding. I knew the city it was in decay, but at the end of the day, I did not obviously know the extent. And the second week of my position as a mayor, conducted a study to see the infrastructure backlog, 170 billion rands. I remember I called the press conference to really share with you, and that document is still there that you can demonstrate where the breakdown of this 170 billion rands. We inherited a city with over 300,000 housing backlog, over 300,000 backlog, 180 informal settlements, squatter camps. We call them informal settlements because we're trying to be politically correct, because some of these informal settlements, the squatter camps, I cannot for the life of me see and understand why the Human Rights Commission is allowing our fellow South Africans live in those conditions. The city of Johannesburg hijacked buildings. People in some of the suburbs, in the south of Johannesburg, on the west of Johannesburg, being taken over, and sometimes by illegal foreign nationals. And I raised this matter to say, no. This is not going to continue under my watch. We will deal with this issue of hijacked buildings and take them back and allow the private sector to build affordable accommodation for people, create employment, and turn Johannesburg into a construction site. Remember, on the 1st of December 2016, during the days when I was bringing out an update to the residents of 100 days in office, I raised this issue of my commitment to turn the city of Johannesburg into a construction site. Unfortunately, also discovered in the 3 years, 35 billion rands of fraud and corruption cases. Uncovered in 3 years, 35 billion rands of fraud and corruption. Services in poor communities were almost non-existent. And that's really what obviously created conflict between the DA and I when I committed this government, my government at the time, to be a pro-poor government. And I was not it was not an issue that was negotiable to me. are committed that coalition government that I was running, that is going to really be a pro-poor the government. What are the intervention measures instituted? Immediately, because of the administration being inhabited by cadres, some of them were in positions not because of what they knew, they were in positions because of who they knew. I said, this cannot. So we immediately instituted a skills audit to ensure that we can have the right people in the right position. Because of the high levels of corruption, we established what is today in the city of Johannesburg called Group Forensic and Investigation Services to help investigate cases of fraud and corruption, because I was just inundated from day one when I moved into office, people bringing one file after the other of fraud and corruption. Some of them as clear as daylight as to why the city was not doing anything about this. We immediately embarked on a project of reclaiming the inner city from the hijackers called the Inner City Rejuvenation project, which I'm sure all of you are aware. By the time I had left, we had already identified over 600 buildings, 154 of them already through council given to the private sector to the value of investment of 32 billion rands, creating permanent 24,000 jobs, creating housing units 14,000. Unfortunately, I had to leave before the implementation of this exercise. We declared war against illegal foreigners in our city. And I remember after the 1st of December 2016, when I raised this issue of illegal foreigners, that's when everyone, or majority of South Africans, declared war against me, calling me xenophobic, including actually taking me to the South African Human Rights Commission. I'm sure you remember that very well. But fortunately enough, I had the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa on my side, because what I was ventilating was contained in our Constitution, that this country was built at the back of migrants, and we want people of the world to continue coming to our country, but they must come here legally, and when they're here, they must respect our laws. Never really called people to say, Abraham. No, I said, let's really hold the Home Affairs accountable, because this mess is created by corruption and ineptitude within the Department of Home Affairs. We embarked on a massive improvement of revenue collection in the city, so that the city can get more revenues to be able to provide services. And I'm sure you guys are aware, I made my report available. It is still available for you as members of the media. If you want that report of my closing when I left, to really see how revenue collection in the city of Johannesburg improved, drastically improved. We were like literally on a month-to-month basis hitting all-time record in terms of revenue collection. And that was also at the same time allowing us to provide services to our people. We fought, obviously I don't believe that we managed to stop corruption completely, but fighting corruption assisted us to really get more revenue. By the time I left, our expenditure on infrastructure moved from, I think, 52% when we took over from the ANC in 2016. By the time I left, infrastructure in the city of Johannesburg was sitting at 71%. As I said earlier on, we committed and unapologetically my administration to a proper agenda. And this didn't sit well with the DA, but I did not really care. I did not go into politics to serve special interest. I was in government to serve people of our country, particularly the poor and the vulnerable. And it's a position I will never give up on. I don't want, as a South African, to live side by side with inequality. Inequality created by men. over many years of colonialism, over many years of national party apartheid government, over 30 years of ANC mismanagement and corruption. So our people are not poor because they want to be poor. They are poor today. Inequality in South Africa is the highest because men created this inequality. And for us to address this inequality, we need government intervention. We are not going to go to church to ask God to give us the wisdom to address the question of inequality. We need government intervention. Just to remind you, when I was the mayor, probably the first mayor or the only mayor where I fired 3 DA MMCs for fraud and corruption from my executive team without the support of the DA. Every time I wanted to fire someone, they would object and ask me to delay. And I would always say to them, please, colleagues, this is not a political party matter. I'm just saying, informing you, these people are going. And I did fire three of them. And I was really quite surprised that the party that claims to be fighting ANC corruption, but after I fired them without their permission, kept them as councillors. So you can imagine the contradiction. You can imagine as a mayor, I ran at the caucus, and because obviously I had no powers to fire councillors, they leave them as councillors. And this is the very same party that's fighting ANC corruption. So that obviously led to my resignation when obviously it came to my attention that they were planning to really have a motion of no confidence against me. And as I've indicated during my resignation speech, I'm not the kind of person to really be pushed around by anyone. If I move because I do it for the right reasons. So unfortunately, my relationship with the DA soured almost immediately after taking office. I was accused of spending the residents' funds with people who don't pay their taxes and don't vote for the DA. They developed a campaign to position me as an EFF mayor. Some of you are aware, radio station, during the 2021 elections, they spent a fortune asking residents not to vote for me because I'm an EFF mayor. Now you can imagine Herman Mashava, capitalist, being associated with the EFF. The reason why I was called the EFF, because I was determined and no one was going to stop me from providing services to poor communities. This is not an EFF resolve or the only thing that the EFF can do. Some of us are equally concerned, and we are going to do it, and there's a reason why we're doing this transaction right now. Against some of the utterances that we've made. We live in a new era where we realize that we've got to really do something. Now, let's now deal with development since the 2021 local governments. Due to my experience with the ANC, I committed ActionSA never to work with the ANC. I'm old enough where I lived 34 years of my life under an evil system of apartheid. So I grew up with majority or most of the people in the ANC as a businessman or as a student. So I knew them. That's why when I started engaging them about some of the things after the New South Africa to say, guys, this is unacceptable. But they continued until where we reached, some of us reached a stage to say, look, if you can't change them, then you can't really work with them. So I then obviously started, as I've indicated, working with the DA, including becoming their mayor. So basically what we've now to come to really accept as a fact, we live in a totally different world. Immediately after the 2024 elections, Senate had a 2-day strat session on the 3rd and the 4th of June, and I think we gave you a report back of that Senate meeting where we committed to review and consult our structures. And during the period of the engagement with our structures, it really emerged an opportunity emerged where our structures said, guys, please, we cannot really let the residents of these 3 metros down because of our own personal beliefs and values. I think we all entered politics to save society. The city of Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni, very unstable. As a ActionSA, we deserve to really get a speaker in Tshwane, and our partners was not really helping us in this regard. So we then took a decision that we will enter when ANC contacted us after obviously getting responses and reactions from our partner, our structures to engage the ANC. And in our proposal to the ANC, we said we are happy to engage. We've listened to our people. We live in a new world, and we don't want to really be the one. I don't want one day to say to my grandchildren, when the city of Johannesburg has collapsed, that I was responsible. I kept my own personal beliefs or values, put it as a priority. So we then obviously called the Senate meeting over the weekend, where I gave them the proposal, which I gave to the ANC. Because when I met with the ANC, first I sent to Michael and Funzi to engage them, and I then decided to take over the negotiations. Called them to my house. I said, guys, I'm not here to play. I've listened to our people, our structures. I'm very fully aware of the state of these metros, that they're not what South Africans would want them to really be. And ActionSA, with our numbers, with the only party that can actually serve the position, then obviously gave them our proposal. We agreed now with the ANC, and I'm pleased with this arrangement that we accepted in good faith, that will start with the city of Johannesburg with immediate effect. And we allow ANC and the current structures to run the executive. ActionSA don't want anything to do with the executive. ActionSA to take over the legislature, with some of the committees to be allocated to them to accommodate their current partners. Because obviously they've got a broad church of other smaller parties. We said, for us it's not about position. We are happy to really give you some of the positions so that you can accommodate some of the smaller parties who are there with you since 2021. But we'll take the key ones in this arrangement. Key one, for an example, the speaker position. So ActionSA is going to take over the speaker, and the ANC and their partners can take the executive, which you can imagine it now gives us an opportunity as an effective, constructive opposition with the real powers to hold the ANC accountable. And as Michael has already indicated, we wanted the removal of the current mayor. There's just no way we can honestly, in a good state, said to our residents that we are happy with the current mayor. So we said to the ANC, you guys, you headed this mayor to play a role that this job is way beyond him. So please, the only way we are prepared to really support you, we need the removal of this mayor. As Michael has also indicated, including our caucus leader, we want the withdrawal of this 200 rands electricity charge by City Power. Completely unfair. There's money that City Power can collect from illegal connections and so forth. Go aggressive. Why then punish law-abiding citizens? So we said this must obviously be withdrawn. We also made it clear to them, and I think I'm really pleased that the Premier is fully behind this, because the previous mayor, when I was Premier, when I was the mayor, never gave the support to the inner city rejuvenation plan for provision of affordable housing for South Africans. So we are going to embark on a massive program for the inner city rejuvenation, where we reignite this program so that over 300,000 housing backlog, because imagine when I took over in 2016, we're sitting at 300,000. I don't know what the number is, but without any doubt, must be much worse. So the only way we're going to address this, we are not going to wait for national government to provide housing, the RDP housing. We want our people to live in the city, close to where they work. And we will ensure that we protect them. We are unapologetically going to declare war against criminality in the city, including illegal immigration. Now, working with the province, with South African Police Services, with JNPD, you are going to see the acceleration of dealing with illegal immigration. Those who are in our country illegally, those who are in our country committing crime, we are going to deal with them. Whether you're South African or a foreign national, we are going to deal with you. We are going to expedite the question of the management of illegal trade in our city. We cannot accept that the businesses in our communities are run by people who, in the first place, we don't know who they are, how they came into this country, how they brought money into this country. Did this money come through mattresses or sofas? And they send them through mattresses and sofas. That is going to come to an end. We have to commit in ensuring that we respect the bylaws of this country. Everyone running business in this country must be registered with the South African Revenue Services. So we're going to have special units with JMPD working with South African Police Services to ensure that the bylaws of this country are protected. Businesses cannot run by people who are in our country illegally. So we want the businesses in our communities to run by our own people, because they will pay taxes, they will employ our people. And I think the Premier has given us a commitment in that regard. Importantly, something that Michael raised, we are not a part of this, they call it the government of national unity, or whatever they call it. We're not part of that. We will vote and support the ANC on an executive level, on an issue-by-issue basis. And the reason why it's important not to really have an agreement, once bitten, twice shy. You remember, is it October last year, when some of the parties who are in government today got us to sign agreements in front of you, the nation, and the world. But when they were in breach of those agreements, they didn't give a damn. So that says to us, you sign an agreement with political parties in this country, they don't mean anything. They're not worth the paper it's written on. So it must be about our values, what we stand for. So we said to the Premier and the Gauteng team and the ANC to say, we are not interested in having a formal agreement. You can take our word that we will support you as long as you accept that we will hold you accountable. You do something stupid, you must understand there will be consequences. But at the same time, this is not just a one-way stream. Because as a ActionSA, we are not saying we are perfect. We're human beings. The people we are going to deploy in these positions, in the event they do anything stupid, please hold us accountable as well. So we don't need to really have an agreement. We will vote with you and support you on an issue-by-issue basis. As I indicated to you, that we've taken a decision to start with Johannesburg, put it, seal it, and to make it run. And within the next 2 weeks or so, we will then, ANC right now busy with their discussions on Ekurhuleni, and hopefully, based on the negotiations with Ekurhuleni, it will follow the same principle as Michael and I have already outlined. And as when it relates to the city of Tshwane, the city of Tshwane, as you are aware, ActionSA is supposed to have had a speaker, but our coalition partner let us down, sabotaged the voting process, where the votes were declared null and void by the IEC. We ended up with a one party holding that position. We tried through the courts. We've been waiting now, 18 months or so? And our partner is happy with this arrangement. So we then said to the ANC, you've got to remove that speaker. You've got to remove that speaker so that ActionSA can take over that speaker so that we can hold you accountable. Because there are issues in Tshwane that we cannot really hide. And we're not going to hide as ActionSA. To give you an example, we're not really pleased. Amanskraal, where I was born and raised, used to drink water. Some days when I was in high school, when I did not have money from my gambling over the weekend, I'll drink water for the whole day because I used to leave home at 6:30, be home at 5:30 in the afternoon. If I was not successful in playing dice over the weekend, the only thing I will survive on was drinking water from the tap. For the last 18 years, every time I visit my family, I have to buy them water. And you say to yourself, but water treatment plants, this is a technology that's been around, 200 years or so? South African water have been declared on many occasions in the past to be one of the cleanest water in the world. By people of Amanskraal, where we lost plus minus 31 or so people earlier this year due to cholera. And some people want to deny that it's not as a result of that. So we want to really get deep into this Edwin Sodi matter as to why in 2019, Edwin Sodi was given this contract. 40 million rands more expensive, given money in advance. Edwin Sodi had no knowledge whatsoever on water treatment plant.
Not even a vendor.
Yeah, no, it was not even on the vendors list. And our partners in Tshwane are uncooperative. And I think for that reason, they're not interested. They're happy to have this one party to have a speaker's position. So we are now, God has given us an opportunity with the ANC to remove this person so that we can have the speaker in the city of Tshwane. Also, remember you guys as the media, ActionSA was actually attacked, and I've not seen any retraction or correcting this. When ActionSA, when the mayor, Randall Williams, brought in a report to council of a 26 billion rands unsolicited bid, we said to them, we are not going to vote for this. This is an unsolicited bid. This is illegal. But obviously, Randall Williams at the time negotiated with the ANC and EFF to vote with them. And when it came to council, ANC and EFF withdrew, put him under the bus, voted against this. But strange enough, our partner accused us of not being supportive, of being disruptive, expecting us as ActionSA to vote for an unsolicited bid, targeting to one of the donor or someone to really be a part of this. ActionSA will never deliberately get involved in anything that involves corruption. Is ActionSA perfect? We are human beings. We make mistakes, but we'll never make deliberate mistakes. It is for that reason we voted against that unsolicited bid. And I know some people, even in the media, are taking us of being uncooperative because the DA has got the machinery to use against anyone who opposes them. And obviously, I think some South Africans have accepted them to really be the cleanest human beings you can ever come across. And fortunate, some of us are aware about these issues, and we are saying, no, this is not the South Africa we want. When corruption raises its head, be from the ANC, from the EFF, from the DA, from ActionSA, we believe very strongly that corruption must be dealt with. And that's a commitment that we can give to the people of South Africa. So from our side, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. We're grateful that the Premier of Gauteng was willing to work with us in ensuring that we can bring accountability back in Gauteng. It'll start here in Gauteng because it's not going to start in this in government of national unity, because we've listened already on Friday. Political parties a few months ago, they were against Phala Phala, but today they are happy to defend Phala Phala at whatever cost. They say Phala Phala is not as bad as in Nkandla. Phala Phala is not as bad as in Nkandla. So basically what we are saying in South Africa, we are happy to accept certain crimes when they are committed by people we're not friends with. But when we are friends with you, we'll defend you. ActionSA will not defend anyone. That's a commitment that we can give you. And that is what actually informed us to respect the decision of our structures to say, please, give us an opportunity. Mr. Mashaba, we are aware you did not want to talk to the ANC, but I said, this is it. And obviously they're hearing this for the for the first time today, this morning, through you, so that they understand why we had a change of mind. And I managed over the weekend to present my proposal to Senate, and Senate gave us the full go-ahead. And Saturday afternoon, we then finalized our arrangement with the Premier and some of his team in Gauteng and Johannesburg. So we're going to start with Johannesburg, put it behind us, and then from there, then we'll give you details of how we're going to structure Ekurhuleni and Tshwane. It's only the kind of question of the speaker at this point in time that we can talk about. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity. Sam, back to you.
Thanks so much, Mr. President. Guys, we know how it goes. I'm going to open the floor for a series of questions. If you can please raise your hand if you have a question to ask, and then just let me know what your name is and from which media house you're from, and to whom you are directing the question. With that said, yes, let's start this side.
Thank you. Sorry. Abu Mdila from ENCA. President, in your speech just now, you just spoke, well, largely lambasted the ANC itself. You spoke of 30 years of the ANC mismanagement and corruption. You've spoken about billions around fraud and corruption at the hands of the ANC that you now are working with. How do you then justify that to the people that voted you, given that the politics of ActionSA has largely been against ANC and not bringing it back via the back door? How do you justify to your voters on what you're currently doing and the fact that you bring the ANC back via the back door? What's changed? Do you believe the ANC that you just lambasted can now govern effectively without fraud and corruption? And when you mentioned the key positions in the legislature, can you maybe outline what are those key positions? I know you mentioned the position of Speaker. Does this then also, you also mentioned Ekurhuleni and the city of Tshwane. Do you also want the Speaker positions there in the city of Tshwane and Ekurhuleni? And maybe expand on the relationship, this issue by issue, will it also be for the Gauteng province, the legislature itself, and the support that you're now giving to the ANC? Also, you mentioned the issue of the mayor. It'll be based on the individual that the ANC will put forward. Dada Morero, will you support if the ANC puts him forward, since he's the ANC chairperson in Johannesburg and most likely going to be the one that the ANC wants to be the mayor? Will you support that name? And which ones would you support me?
Cool, you've got that. Next.
Thank you very much. It's Ziyanda Ngobo from Newsroom Africa. Just to follow on from my colleague Aviwe, in a briefing after the elections, in fact it was the 6th of June, when you were talking about leaving the multi-party charter, you still maintained, so this was after the elections now, you still maintained that you want nothing to do with the ANC. And in the speech now, you were talking about, oh, you'd already done your assessment. So, and at that briefing, you had said you just don't see how you could reconcile your differences. So at what stage did you reconcile your differences? And what measurements did you use to find this common ground? And linked to that, is this part of ActionSA strategy working towards the local government elections? I mean, this is quite a big pivot, seeing that you're saying this by and large came from your structures and it was sort of a bottom-up approach. And just on a different kind of question, who made the call to you, Mr. Mashaba, and what are some of the things that were a challenge during those discussions? Thank you.
Were those first questions addressed to me or to him?
Both of you. I think you can decide how you
Okay, all right.
answering. That's on you.
Cool. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. My name is Lunganzano. I'm from the Mail and Guardian. Look, for me, President, it's very strange that people like Bongani Baloyi found themselves out of ActionSA because of wanting to work with the ANC. What has changed your mind? Surely there is something that has changed your mind. Are you looking at now that, because I know the party basically is focused on Gauteng, is your decision to work with the ANC here in Gauteng based on saying, okay, well, this is how we can move voters to the party? And in you demanding speaker positions, what is it that you really want to do with those speaker positions? How will this benefit the party? Thank you so much.
Cool, thanks. We'll take those three for now. Those are quite a mouthful. And then we'll do another round of questions. I'll get to all of you, to fear not.
I want to take the
Okay, yeah. Let me take it. Then, Michael, you can obviously elaborate on some of them. My view regarding fraud and corruption of the ANC, I actually indicated during my remarks. It's the ANC, the only corrupt party in this country. And I think the mistake we are making as South Africans, we've already accepted that ANC is the only corrupt party in South Africa. I've indicated to you the issues in Tshwane. So I don't understand why people, every time we talk about corruption in South Africa, it's ANC. Yes, ANC has committed the most. The others, they are protected. When I raised the issue of Tony Leon visiting me at my house, I raised it at the press conference. Did you guys ever follow up? He was leading the negotiations of this formation of this grand coalition. Did you guys ever engage him, or is he an ANC member now? Perhaps after serving as an ambassador. So it's not just really the ANC that is corrupt. Why we've accepted to work with the ANC so that we can hold them accountable, and not just hold them accountable without having the powers. These positions actually answer some of the questions that you guys have asked. Having the speaker and running the legislature in these municipalities with the numbers that we've got, it gives us the power. It gives us the meat to really be able to deal with this issue, not just making noise as an opposition. Because you can imagine when we run as a speaker, no report will come through council without our approval. No one is going to hide the corruption from society. The level of corruption in this country has reached unacceptable, unprecedented levels. So it is not only the ANC. We're dealing with the DA in Tshwane. There are serious issues we have with the DA in Tshwane. We're working with them. It's for that reason we're looking for this position, so that we can unearth this. And I know the parties are not going to be comfortable with this. It doesn't matter. For us, it doesn't matter. It's not about them being comfortable. If they're not, if they feel uncomfortable, then they must not give us these positions, because we want to use these positions to hold them accountable to society. So it's not only the ANC that that is corrupt. And do I believe this will work? I'll tell you, I said this to Senate on Saturday. I said, you know what I'm proposing, and I proposed to the ANC. I'm afraid, colleagues, even our own people we are going to deploy to take over this position, I can't guarantee them. But we are going to do our best to make sure that we put in ethical leaders. But can I guarantee that they are not going to do something stupid? Honestly, it would really be an unfair question. The only thing that you can judge ActionSA over the 4 years we've been in a political party, how quickly we act when a question of corruption raises its head within our structures. We one party, we immediately deal with it. Our constitution does allow us. But whether ANC is going to behave like angels, that I cannot really guarantee. But fortunate enough, now ActionSA is the speaker's position and holding some of the positions within the legislature. It's going to help us officially to hold them accountable without us just really making noise in council and issuing press statements and no one doing anything about it. Being in the legislature, the mayor and the executive will not operate without us. And one thing that I can, and I've assured the ANC, we are not going to be an obstructive opposition. We are not going to, when ANC brings in something that is going to advance the interest of our people, we are not going to just really block it for the sake of blocking. We will support them. It is for that reason we committed, we are going to support their loan, because their loan is part of the budget that was part of the budget. So we will support them. If they bring something that is going to serve the interest of South Africans, we will support them. But we cannot really guarantee that they are going to behave. Including, we cannot guarantee that ActionSA people are not going to get involved in corruption. The only thing we can tell you as ActionSA, if any member of ActionSA gets involved in corruption and we've got evidence, that person will be out of the door before even actually seeing the inside of the room. You know. Will we accept that? Obviously, we've not really discussed with the ANC who they must put in as the mayor. The only thing we said, the current mayor that we don't want. We've got it proved that I think our caucus leaders already indicated to you this person, this job is way beyond his capacity. So we are not going to dictate to the ANC who they must put forward. The only thing we said to the ANC, please give us someone who can save the residents of the city of Johannesburg as a starting point. Give us someone really committed to doing the right thing. But we are not going to really dictate to them who they must put in charge. Zianda, you raised the issue about us after the elections. We had the press conference, we said we can't. Remember, I even said, and Michael also indicated, at that Senate, after that Senate meeting, we had a press briefing. But we then, obviously, Senate had given us the marching orders to go and talk to our people on the ground. And this is what really came out when our structures on the ground really wanted to be given an opportunity, because saving as opposition without having the power. When in the city of Johannesburg, we are the third biggest political party. Don't know if some of you are aware, we've got 44 councillors. We are the third biggest political party in the city of Johannesburg. So this for the team said, you know what, Senate, give us an opportunity to use this 44 councillors to serve the residents, not to serve Herman Mashaba's feeling that he doesn't want to work with the ANC. Please give us that opportunity, and we listen. And Senate actually was comfortable with it. Says, I think it's something worth trying, because what we are doing is not to satisfy anyone's personal agenda, is to serve the residents of the city of Johannesburg. And you said, is this a project towards 2026? If it's going to be, then let it really be within politics. So if this project will help to improve the lives of South Africans and the South African voters in these metros actually like what we are doing, then let it be. I don't see why, as a political party, we must work against the voters. We have the responsibility as a political party to do things that are good for society, and society will reward you by voting for you. Mail and Guardian, you spoke about Bongani. Huge difference. When Bongani brought this matter to our attention at the time, firstly, the political environment totally different to what it is right now. Totally. We live in a totally different world. So that's the first thing. And secondly, what was presented to us had other agenda. One thing, personally, I will never do, and please don't do it to me. Don't come to me to think you can take advantage of me. Present something to me. In the meantime, you mean something else. That's when you will see how Herman Mashaba can react. Because my grandfather taught me and instilled in me, when you have an issue, deal with that issue directly, whether people like it or not. Deal with it directly. But please, my son, my grandson, never mislead someone. Never take advantage of someone's vulnerability. So when you deal with Herman Mashaba, you will deal with him on the basis, what's always on the table, what I present to you, it's what's on the table. Like right now, having this press conference in front of the nation, what we are presenting, it's what's on the table. We don't have any other agenda hidden somewhere. Everything that we've said to you, we are saying to you in good faith, that's what we mean. Whether it's going to work or not, we don't really have the guarantees, and no one in the world has got the guarantee. The difference between what Bongani presented to us and what we presented to Senate and what our structure said to us, completely different. When someone misrepresents the intention and we discover, I have evidence of misrepresentation, that's really what made this thing not to really work at the time. And the question of the Speaker's position, what we'll do with it, I think I've already outlined that. Michael, I don't know if there's anything else that you'd like to add.
What question is that, Z?
Who made the call, and what were some of the things that were off the table? Who made the call to you, Mr.
Oh, okay.
Who went to your house?
Yeah, well, I think, is it really, there's certain things, is it really necessary? One thing I can tell you, the ANC made the call to me. In fact, immediately after the elections, sent someone I would really call a friend, because I come from Pretoria. It's a businessman, very close to the ANC, came to my house. We spent 2.5 hours convincing me to get involved in the government of national unity, and I did flatly denied. I said, please, I cannot. So what I'm saying is, do I have to give you the name? Honestly, it's not. Is it? What benefit is that going to add? It's not going to add anything. But one thing, ANC made a call to us, and we accepted. And when I said, I'm even happy to host meetings with you at my house. We've had 2 meetings, one the week before the other week. Michael was on leave at the time. We're doing some fishing. When I had a meeting, I invited Funzi to that meeting. We had a meeting. We had a meeting at my house, and Saturday after Senate's approval, I then dropped them the Premier the note to say, look, I've got the green light to continue to proceed. Can we meet? And they were available at 5 o'clock. We met at 5. Michael, Funzi, and I met with them. And fortunate enough, what I originally presented to them, everything really, no major changes. There wasn't really any sticking point. We don't really have any major differences. They agree with our proposal. We are happy to give them the opportunity. What is important is will this government serve the residents of Johannesburg? Because they are the ones who are going to run the executive.
Yeah, thanks very much. I think most of the things have been said, but there are a couple of things I'd like to augment from the President's remarks. Aviwe, I think it's precisely because of that track record of corruption that ActionSA's involvement and leading in the legislature offers a lot of value. A lot of the investigative functions relating to oversight take place in the legislature. And in fact, we were talking this morning, the track record that Herman Mashaba had as mayor of Johannesburg in fighting corruption can now find continuation going forward if ActionSA is going to take leading roles in the legislature. So I think it's actually precisely your point that makes this something that we should be taking forward. I would also like to say more generally that, there's an extent to which some people are gleeful and smug about ActionSA's position to suggest that somehow this represents a reversal of our principles. I think we need to understand one thing. If you look at what happens in Johannesburg, the crisis we are in is because the largest party and the second largest party have not provided leadership. The ANC has put in an empty suit in the form of a mayor, and the DA has refused on no less than 4 occasions, to work with us to take back the city of Johannesburg. ActionSA has a constituency, and a very large one, in Johannesburg that we must account for. After 5 years, what are we going to say? We sat on our hands for 5 years. That's not good enough if you look at the crisis that's going on in our city. We have to put our 44 votes to work. And if the first and second largest party have failed to provide leadership in the city, it's up to the third largest party to do that. And we have developed a model that we can do so that is consistent with our values and our principles, that puts us in opposition, not in the executive, and that gives us a structural platform upon which we can fight for the residents of the city. And let us be judged on what we contribute to that, rather than anything else. Because there's this absurd standard that, those who want to be smug and gleeful about this announcement today don't hold the parties to account on the other side of the aisle that have betrayed every principle and every value that they've announced in the election campaign. And somehow we are being held to a higher standard. And I think we must be fair and accurate in the way in which we regard how we go about this work more than anything else. As it relates to the questions from Zianda, I think Herman has responded well to that. And I also think it must be said that Bongani Baloy's proposal involved taking over the city of Tshwane from our coalition partners, which is not what we're mooting here today. That was the treachery that was involved in that particular arrangement. There's nothing of the sort. You will have seen ActionSA on record over the weekend announcing that we will be voting to defeat the motion of no confidence in the city of Tshwane. So this is not anywhere near the same kind of arrangement that we are putting in place. And when you talk about positions, it's true. I mean, the speaker is something that we are most certainly going for. It must be important to observe that our coalition in Tshwane has already resolved that ActionSA should have the speakership. It's not a new decision, it's an old one that hasn't been implemented because of the vote buying that took place in that election and the fact that the Gauteng North High Court system is a joke. We waited 18 months for a court date. We're in court on the 2nd of September. So, it's necessary for us to ensure that we have a speaker that comes from a bloc that represents the majority of the city of Tshwane. And that's what we're going to try and correct there. But the position of speaker is a vital position in an environment where the executive has used its majority to defend the wrong things. Our caucus leader in Johannesburg, who sits next to me now, has led the fight on the 200 Rand surcharge, on the water crisis in Johannesburg. But every time we've led that fight, the speakership has been used to frustrate and deny the debate of the issues that impact the residents of Johannesburg. Going forward, the speaker of Johannesburg, should ActionSA acquire that, will facilitate that debate. We will lead the debate. And we will be the ones ensuring that those kind of issues result in real accountability and ActionSA becomes the point of the spear. But ultimately, rather than talking about how we position ourselves merely around who we work with, judge us by what we deliver. Because ultimately we have a team of people led by our caucus leader that are hugely capable and are actually going to take on a fight for the residents that's going to deliver value in a way that hasn't happened before. And going back to how I started, we need to deliver value with our 44 seats because that's what voters put us into office to do.
Anything on the ad, Chair?
No. I don't think there's anything. I think there was probably a question from a viewer about whether we are going to adopt the issue-by-issue approach in the legislature as well.
Yeah.
And I think Michael did touch on that absolutely. That's what we're going to do. As you'll know, in the legislature, we have had a discussion with the ANC that we will lead the SCOPA position. And that discussion has been finalized, and we're just waiting for the process to unfold, where our MPL, John Moody, will occupy the role as a chairperson of SCOPA. So I think that was the only question. Other questions, I think the President and Michael have really touched on it extensively.
Cool, thanks, Chair. The next round of questions. Is that you, Ray?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
I was just going to know, when Ken's in the Johannesburg residence, when will you bring a motion of no confidence in the current mayor and the current speaker, the ActionSA that will bring the motion of no confidence, or the ANC? And in Tshwane, the same, when will the motion of no confidence be the speaker?
Cool, another question? Yes, go ahead.
I know that much of you have touched on this, but are you guys concerned? I mean, ActionSA, when it was established and throughout today, has been a party that has been deemed to pride itself on what it promises, on what it says. And at some point, you deemed the ANC a no-go area to an extent that you even said that they were rotten to the core, corrupt to the core. The country is where it is because of the ANC. I mean, in various interviews, you even, assure South Africans that if you ever find yourself in a situation where you have to entertain them, it will never happen. You'd rather step down, and it will happen under somebody.
Thank you. You want to come back for another bite?
Yes.
Yes, let's go.
No, thanks very much, President. It's Lungaken from the Middle Caribbean. President, if I recall very well, in 2021, the ANC, EFF approached ActionSA to say they were going to put ActionSA in Joburg, and you must then vote for ANC in Tshwane and EFF in Ekurhuleni. Would that not arrangement back then in 2021 have helped you in a way of trying to show to your voters that, what, this is what we can deliver, instead of what's happening now, that there's a lot of parties? Because from the proposal, what I knew is that they said they would support you in council and they would put you to be the only party in Johannesburg. You should do the same for them in Tshwane and Ekurhuleni. Would that kind of arrangement not have been something that would have avoided all this fighting with the DA and the tussle with all your coalition partners right now? Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll take those. And
Okay, Ray, question of a monk. This is the matter that's being handled by the ANC, and they're going to do everything possible to ensure that they negotiate with this. With the mayor and the speaker to step down without going through a motion of no confidence. I think it is not in our control, but obviously they're committed to make this happen sometime next week. So this coming week, I think on Thursday, there's a council meeting where two issues as part of this deal that are going to be dealt with. It's going to be the reversal of the 200 rands city power and the passing of the loan. And then this gives us them enough time. Early next week, they will call us, the city manager will call a special sitting of council for the election of the speaker, followed by the mayor. But I think those issues are being handled by the ANC with their partners, and hope that they can do it without actually calling for a motion of no confidence. I don't believe there'll be a motion of no confidence. They feel comfortable, and I feel comfortable that they can do it without having to go through a motion of no confidence. But that will happen sometime next week. I hope you can really be there in council when we elect ActionSA speaker for the first time in the city of Johannesburg. And then a week later or so, obviously, once we have the mayor will then appoint his executive or her executive, And then a week later, we'll then have another special council meeting for election of the committee chairs. So that's how we said we'll run the process. And once we concluded Johannesburg, then we will visit Ekurhuleni and Tshwane at the same time. Tshwane, it's a simple one. It's just to really ask this one party councillor to step aside, and then we'll have the Tshwane council meeting for ActionSA's speaker to really be elected. And SABC, the question of saying ANC is corrupt to the core, has that changed? Has ANC all of a sudden become holier than thou? As I said to you, it's not only the ANC. And if you look at what happened 6 months ago and now, the voters have spoken to say, you know what, hold one another accountable. And I think with our numbers in the city of Johannesburg, that's what we've just really outlined to you, that that's what we want to do. And we're not really condoning that ANC corruption has disappeared. We're not saying DA's corruption in Tshwane has disappeared. But that's why I think when our structures, I think that's something that I think we want you guys to note, that our structures, this decision for us to take really came to a large extent from our structures to say, guys, please let's use our numbers to stabilize these metros, but at the same time hold this government out accountable. And Mail and Guardian ANC proposal in 2021, it's always easy to really be an analyst or professor, you know. I remember when I resigned as the mayor of the city of Joburg, one job I was looking forward to do, if people of Joburg did not ask me to be to start a political party, I wanted to become an analyst, that I can be on ENCA, Newsroom Africa every day, to come and really tell you what could have happened.
and no accountability.
No accountability, you know.
You get it wrong so much.
So I think looking at things in reflection, in fact, I think that proposal even right now is not viable for ActionSA to co-govern with the ANC and EFF. Even today, ActionSA will not accept it, because you can imagine you run a municipality with the support of ANC, and they do something stupid, or you know, you raise that issue, they can vote you out the following day. So I think that proposal, even right now, is not doable it's not acceptable as far as ActionSA is concerned. So it's not just a question of what happened after the 2021 election. Even right now, that proposal will not fly in front of ActionSA Senate, including myself. I'll be the first one to vote it down.
So you call you Comrade President now?
All right.
Comrade.
Order, colleagues. I'll take the next round of questions, starting this side.
Morning, afternoon. Alpha Ramushwana here from Eyewitness News. Apologies if these questions were asked. I had to leave the room for a second. I find it, quite weird that you make this decision a few weeks after the DA decided to share it with the ANC. Do you not feel betrayed as the ActionSA and decide to do the same thing in Joburg, share it with the ANC in a way? That's question number one. And what does this say about ActionSA? I mean, how do you communicate this to your constituencies, that you've decided to merge in a way with the ANC on a case-by-case or issue-by-issue basis? Because since your inception, you've been very vocal about ANC corruption. How do you go back to your constituencies and say, we've decided to now work with these very same corrupt cadres? That's all. Thank you.
Cool. Next, Ray.
In Ekurhuleni, what does ActionSA want in Ekurhuleni? Because currently it's be coalitions between the ANC and the EFF. So what is ActionSA's interest?
Cool, thank you. Any other questions? Mark, have we missing people? Blinded by the light?
No.
We're good.
So, Zian, I wanted to ask a question, or have you covered?
No.
She's trying to leave.
Okay. Alpha, how do you explain this to our constituencies? This decision, if you've listened to it, this decision actually came from our constituencies. Remember, actually, Zianda's question to say, but guys, immediately after your breakaway session, you came back and still maintain the view that you will not work with the ANC. However, you're going to consult with your structures. And this came from our constituencies. Our constituencies right now, I can tell you, without any shade of doubt, our constituency are not going to really believe that we can be the party that listens. That we don't just as stubborn Herman as people take me to be, because I have this whatever people think that I'm a stubborn person. Now, one thing that I've learned in the 64 years, almost 65 years, next month I'll be turning 65. One thing that my grandfather taught me is to listen, but ultimately to make a decision. And when I make the decision, I take full responsibility for it. And obviously, I think when engaging our structures, I can tell you without any shade of doubt that it actually made me cry inside, because I don't cry out loud. When listening, listening to the team and actually saying, guys, please, let's save this country. We know you've got your own views, but here it's not just an opportunity for ActionSA. This is an opportunity to stabilize these metros. It is for that reason that I can assure you, actioners across the country, not only in Gauteng, are going to celebrate the day when next week, when they see an ActionSA speaker in the city of Johannesburg, and a few days later see us saving in committees. That they are going to be happy, Ray, when they see us in Ekurhuleni. In Ekurhuleni, so far, I think the arrangement will be almost similar to the city of Johannesburg, but those issues are under discussion. We said, let's deal with one municipality at a time. Our proposal to them, to the ANC, is that we want the same kind of an arrangement as Johannesburg, but they've asked us to give them time because they've got the other political issues that they needed to deal with, which suited us as well, because so that we don't do too many things all at the same time. So this, as I said, in about once Johannesburg is done this week and next week, then we'll follow with Ekurhuleni, almost on the same principle, unless obviously they can bring anything. When we've asked ANC to say, please, if you've got any other input, you are most welcome. If they make sense, we are here to listen. And then as far as Swan is concerned, Swan is just at this point in time just a question of them removing the speaker so that ActionSA can take over that position. And I can tell you, for you as a young person with many more years before you can reach 65, I'm sure you're going to be happy to live in a country that is stable. You have a stable, accountable government that does not steal from civil society. And one day you're going to say, I listened to Mashaba and his team 40 years later to say, I'm grateful for those guys for the decision that they took on behalf of myself and my children and my grandchildren.
Yeah, look, just to deal partly with the question of Ekurhuleni, it's actually precisely because these two municipalities have been treated as a package deal in the so-called government of local unity that actually instability in Ekurhuleni has had blowback on the residents of Johannesburg. The loan agreement was shot down by the EFF in Johannesburg because of the removal of their MMCs in Ekurhuleni. This is the kind of instability that we want to bring an end to, because Actually, when there's a vote for a loan agreement in Johannesburg, the only things we want to know is who's providing the loan, what are the terms, what is the interest, is this the best deal for the people of Johannesburg? And I would venture that we need to end the era of these things being connected, but if providing stability in one provides stability in both, amen. I think that's a good thing for both municipalities, and we will look to it from that particular standpoint. From a point of view, Alpha, of your question, I'm always astonished by the fact that you can draw a parallel between parties that enter a grand coalition in the executive co-governing together, debating how they are going to defend the Pala Pala report and how one crime from your opponents is worse than a crime from your partners. And you draw parallel with the scenario where we say there's no coalition, we're not entering the executive, there's no agreement, and we are free to vote on an issue-by-issue basis on the merits of the issue. There's absolutely no parallel that can be drawn, and if anyone draws that parallel, they're doing so without regard for what's actually being put on the table here. But more importantly, and where I would like to respond quite sincerely to your remark, is that we must do what is right for the residents of Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni. Ultimately, that's what must guide us. And if clinging to a prior position does not serve the residents of Johannesburg, is the argument that we should cling to it nonetheless. Surely we must do what's right by the residents of Johannesburg, and let's look at this idea on the merits. ActionSA's 44 seats in Johannesburg brings stability that brings an end to the era where Johannesburg residents can be held ransom by smaller political parties trying to bring the politics of other municipalities into Johannesburg. That's a good thing. ActionSA leading in the legislature and holding an executive to account that has had no accountability for years is a good thing. And let's deal with it on the merits of the issue and what's good for the residents. And as a political party, we believe if we do what's right for the residents will do what's right for us in the next election.
Cool, we're good. Any more questions? That's right. We're covered. All right. If you want one-on-ones, please reach out to myself and James Stabilise, who is in the back of the room. Thanks, colleagues, for joining us. I look forward to seeing you again when we talk about Ekurhuleni.
No, we'll see you in council. I'm going to do everything possible to be there when an ActionSA speaker is elected.